Senator Fitzpatrick. Is that right?
Yeah, Gurmagath, Chair. And thanks, Richard and Oliver, for meeting with us today. This is a really important piece of work, obviously, that you're undertaking, and the designation of geographical areas within the marine and maritime area for protection, but not just the protection and conservation, but also, I guess, the promotion in the future is really important. And I want to thank you and your colleagues for the work that you're doing in this space. As the Chair said, we as a committee had recommended as part of our pre-leg reports that there would be legislation brought forward. And I suppose that it's encouraging to hear that there are heads being prepared. The government, the programme for government has set out an ambition to have 30% of the marine area designated by 2030. And I'm very mindful that your department was only set up in 2019 and you've been working through a pandemic, and I congratulate you for the progress you've made to date. But I suppose it would be helpful for us to understand the pathway that you see to achieving that 30% target by 2030. And if you could talk a little bit about that. And in the interim, you mentioned that you're undertaking extensive monitoring programs. And if you could share with us some of the specifics maybe around the extent of the monitoring programs that are being operated in the meantime. And if that information isn't readily available, maybe it's something you can circulate to us after the meeting. Gura Mágad.
Thank you, Senator Fitzpatrick. Mr. Cronin.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, thank you. So there's two questions there. The first one was what is the pathway, or what's our view on the pathway to achieving the 30% by 2030, and then maybe details on what our monitoring programs are. So if I take the first one, so certainly if you look at the level of protection we have in Ireland at the moment, we have, I think, about 2.4% designated as protected sites. They're not legally defined as marine protected areas, but they carry out the same effect. These are under the Birds and Habitats and Wildlife Acts. So it is a long distance from 2.4 to 30%. Now, if you also then go into that in a little more detail, what you'll notice is that the coastal zone in Ireland, so that first mile and out to 6 miles, has quite a lot of designated spaces at the moment. I think over 60% or 50 to 60% is already designated of that space. So this tells us already what we need to know, which is that to reach this 30% target, we're going to have to look at much larger marine protected areas, and they're probably going to have to be offshore as well. Okay, so when we look at the definitions we hope to develop for marine protected areas, there are some protection measures that already exist that may qualify, that would allow us to achieve some rapid progress, for example, on reaching this 30% number. Okay, so what I'm speaking there specifically about is there are already long-term fisheries control measures, for example, for deep water habitats. Okay, these may also, depending on how we develop our legislation, provide the basis for marine protected areas. So we should be able to make progress. The question I have been asked before is, will we hit the 30%? And certainly I believe that it is possible from the position I sit in. We will need this legislation in place. With that legislation in place, and with the contribution of the stakeholders and those who have either a relationship through their history or their economic practices, with their partnership, we certainly can meet that target. So they will be, I think, large MPAs will be required, and they will need to be offshore. But we have a lot of information already about those. The second question you had then was some details on the monitoring programme. You know, under the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, we have a comprehensive monitoring programme that we update every 6 years. It measures all of the pollution pressures and all those pressures like marine litter and human-produced noise. It measures all those. It also measures the effect of other human activities like, for example, commercial fishing. Okay. It also measures all of the biodiversity components. So it measures the condition of the seafloor, the health of non-commercial stocks, so not just things like mammals that we would be aware of, but also things like deep water sharks and non-commercial species. We're also hoping to develop monitoring that will help us to understand the effects of climate change on the ocean as well, which we think will be very important for future marine protected areas to provide resilience. So we have that overarching monitoring programme. Now we then have specific focused monitoring programmes as well that, while they don't fall directly to me, we participate in them. These would, for example, include a programme known as the Observe programme, and this is a partnership between a number of different departments in government, where there is monitoring over a large number of seasons and a number of years, where large mammals and seabirds are monitored, both from an aerial point of view and then from ship sightings as well. So we have a number of these programs. There are other programs in place, for example, in relation to commercial fisheries. There's a data collection framework there. And so those programs are underway all the time. When we look at the seafloor itself, which is something that we have done a lot of work in government to understand, we have a long-term program that's run by the Marine Institute to map the seafloor. And again, this provides us with a lot of the information we need in order to make decisions about where we believe the MPAs are most likely to be, so where the unique things that need protection are likely to exist. Does that answer it?
Excellent, Gurmageth.